Yes, good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra, the Monday edition. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Now, this week, the wave of independent candidates continues to grow. The latest to join the bandwagon is Kiambu Governor William Kabogo, who, despite initially conceding defeat to Ferdinand Waititu in the Jubilee Party primaries, has had a change of heart and now says he will be on the ballot come August. He is not alone in this. Another senior Jubilee politician to withdraw his concession and announce his candidature as an independent is Mukurweini legislator Kabando Kabando. Now, what exactly informs this change of heart? What is this that they have found out weeks after their defeat? Is there more than meets the eye in this? For example, how much of this has to do with the 2022 succession debate? Elsewhere, the NASA Brigade has now threatened to boycott the elections if a court ruling does not go its way. 84 days to the elections, what impact does such a statement have? Is this the best way that NASA can approach that particular dispute? Also on this edition of Citizen Extra, we will examine the entry of musicians into the political fray, either as candidates or as political campaigners. What impact does politics have on their careers in music? Also happening this morning, KNCHR will be launching a report on last month's chaotic party primaries. That report is titled Fallacious Vote. Well, in studio this morning, we're privileged to have Sandra Ochola, an advocate and also a governance analyst, as well as Vincent Kimosop, a policy analyst. Good morning.
Fred, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Now, of course, this discussion about the independent candidates continues. What do you read? Your initial thoughts about Governor William Kabogo's move yesterday? Of course, he came out, made an address. We'll be showing you exactly that particular story in a while. But let's start with you, Sandra. What did you see exactly after that statement by Governor Kabogo? What was your immediate reaction?
Sorry?
What exactly do you read in this move by William Kabogo?
Thank you, Fred. For what I read from his statement, I read political preservation. And from my perspective, that is what you see with most of the candidates that are vying for as independents in the next general election. Majority of them are those who lost during the primaries, and so some of them are garnering to preserve themselves and to remain relevant. And especially for Kabogo, I don't want to say that it's surprising. He's an individual who's very political and who is seeking to remain relevant within the political circles. And so despite declaring, more or less declaring that he'd lost in the primaries, he still believes or imagines that he could still maintain the seat and become a representative in the future. And I'm thinking, based on what you've highlighted about the 2022 elections, again, it goes back to the political preservation aspect. It goes back to individuals trying to remain relevant within the public sphere and also trying to chest stamp, so to speak, as regards to political party relevance within the areas they operate in.
Yes, Bwana Kimosop, on the face of it, what do you read on this move by Kabogo?
Thanks, Fred, for having me. I look at two schools of thought. Number one is that when the Jubilee nomination was meant to take place, that was on a Friday, you remember that there was a problem, and the president had a press conference on State House. He owned up, and then the process was repeated on the week that followed. If you remember very well that he sent his deputy to actually go to the Jubilee headquarters, and you saw William Ruto at the heart of things. Now, when the results started trickling in, the statement by Kabogo saying that there are people, some powerful people who don't want me to be around, and actually it was corroborated by some of the Central Kenya members of parliament that they actually pointed their hand. It was a dotted line. All you needed to do is, if you join the dots together, the person they were speaking to was that it was actually the deputy president. Now, there are two schools of thought here. If you look at Mount Kenya politics, since our politics is ethnic, every time we've had a president from the mountain, is that in his second term, even look at Kibaki, the people from the mountain tend to look for another successor, and they listen less to the incumbent. So you actually are seeing most likely that it is appointed towards after Uhuru Kenyatta, who is currently the kingpin from that place, whom will we listen to? So that's the first school of thought. Now, there is an emerging other school of thought. That this, you can trace it to NASA. the presidential candidate of NASA, Raila Odinga, has already hinted and said clearly he is a transition president and he is going to go there for 5 years. Now, if you remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta has said close to 8 times that I am going to do my 10 years and then William Ruto will come and do his 10 years. So if we actually remain together with President Kenyatta for another 5 years, we are going to be conjoined and made to support William Ruto come 2022. So there is another tangent that is emerging, that actually the mountain is looking for another option. Why don't we wait for Raila Odinga to do his 5 years, and then 2022 is open with the possibility of getting another 10 years.
Are you suggesting
those are
that
the two schools of
Are
thought.
you suggesting that they're looking at Raila Odinga presidency to give them time to actually reorganize
Put their house in order,
succession?
yes. Look at the what do you call the Peter Kenneth was brought to Nairobi gubernatorial race with the preparation for him to be to position himself into the national politics. What are we seeing? He came, and of course everybody knows the result. So there is a leadership, future possible leadership gap in central Kenya, and those two schools of thought are actually what I'm postulating are possible scenarios why the independent is emerging. If you want to know, look at they've held a meeting and they have announced that they're going to be the force, of course, supporting Uhuru Kenyatta, and even Kabando wa Kabando, who actually had conceded earlier. You're seeing people are coming back because they're seeing, hey, here is an opportunity for us to be relevant.
Sandra, do you agree with Bwana Kimosop that probably some of these losses, very senior politicians in the Mount Kenya region, the fact that they lost at the party primaries could have been stage managed with the thought of the succession debate in mind?
Well, that's plenty of speculation, but plenty of speculation, but I'll give him credit for that. One thing that, like you rightly said, there are a lot of losses during the primaries, and one thing we saw was that the individuals who are, by and large, appointed by the powers that be, who are meant to take the seats, did not take the seats. And one thing that we are seeing all over the media is when we say that Wanjiku has spoken. So that you saw this in Rift Valley, you've seen this in the central region. So to some extent, yes, the individuals who might say that they lost their chance, and they want to get this chance again. But then for me, the import of having independent candidates, the philosophy of it as has been provided for in the Constitution, is that you get a situation where the individuals who genuinely do not want to belong to a political party due to the issues that you've seen all along, and then the individuals who might not have got an opportunity to vie within the party. But then now what we are seeing is a situation where the whole philosophy of being an independent candidate is being muddied, based on the fact that those who are seeking to vie as independent candidates are individuals who lost, and not who necessarily want to vie based on the principles behind what the Constitution provides as far as independent candidates are concerned. And for me, that is an issue of concern, and should be an issue of concern, because one, we are running away from the ills, so to speak, of our political parties, as opposed to us staying within those parties, mending the situations there be. We are seeking to escape from that situation. So
are we also trying to escape? Sandra, are we also trying to escape from these parties and their rigid approach to succession? For example, Jubilee Party and Bwana Kimosop rightly put it, it is Uhuru Kenyatta until 2022, then another 10 years of William Ruto, and that is cast in stone in as far as Jubilee is concerned. Of course, some people within Jubilee should be thinking, do I have to wait all that time? And probably they're trying to escape that as well.
And that's what I'm saying. We go back to the whole philosophy of why we have, why the Constitution provides for independent candidature. And one thing that I'm seeing is that you have a horde of independent candidates now forming an association, which to some extent is acting as a political party, so to speak, which ideally is not right, because they should be independent from the whole structure and the whole system of a political party.
Okay.
So again, I maintain that it's escapist in one way or the other.
Okay.
And as a country, as a people, we should find means and ways of streamlining our political party so that there are vehicles through which we are able to advance our governance issues, as opposed to vehicles where we are benefiting ourselves.
Okay. Now, we're lucky enough to be joined by one of those gentlemen who are going as an independent candidate, Senator Kembi Getura from Muranga. Karibu sana, Senator. We saw what happened at the party primaries. Now you are going to seek to defend your seat as Senator for Muranga County as an independent candidate. What exactly informs your decision, given that you lost out at the party primaries?
Because I think that would be the wrong starting place. I think the starting point should be that the party nominations were flawed. You know, they were shambolic. In truth, there were no nominations, because in most cases the votes were stolen. And I think this is the point that we should start. And the Constitution allows for independent candidates. At the same time, the political parties, law did not allow for party hopping, as it were, because it was not possible to move to another party, not even a friendlier party, to the party that one was in before, because all those doors were shut. So I think that both democracy and justice requires that if you don't feel satisfied with the situation, you should be able to move on. And that's why you find that so many people have moved to be independent. If there were other avenues, for instance, to move to different parties, that would have been the case. But in this case, the only door that was left open was that of independent, coming in as an independent candidate. And that's what I did. And you asked what informed it. What informed that was that, you see, the assumption is that nominations, like general elections, will be free and fair, open, and and clear. In this instant, like you notice in most of the cases that you now see, these nominations were not just shambolic, they were not free, they were not fair, they were actually stolen. There was a case of multiple voting, there was a case of ballot box stuffing, there was also the case of manipulation of the certificates that were issued by the polling officers to the returning officers that were read out. And so with all these cases in place, one would not be assumed to accept a situation just because you're a member of our party, because you subscribe to a party, to say, yes, it's okay, I lost. So the word lost is the wrong word to use in my situation.
Yes. And incidentally, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission is launching a report this morning about the party primaries. Last month's chaotic party primaries. That report is titled "A Fallacious Vote." We'll be joining our reporter Waweru, who's on standby, Waweru Anyambura, who's on standby at the Intercontinental Hotel in Nairobi. Do we have Waweru? Yes, we do have Waweru. Good morning, Waweru. What can you tell us from where you are?
A very good morning to you, Fred Indimuli, and like you rightly put it, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights this morning is going to unveil a report that is speaking into the just concluded party primaries. In a report they are calling the fallacious vote. Right now I am joined by the Vice Chair of the Commission, Mr. George Marara, who will try to unpack the words of this report briefly for us. Karibu sana, Mr. George.
Thank you.
My English tells me that fallacious is something wrong, something flawed. Why use these strong terms to describe this whole process?
Well, indeed, we use those very strong terms. You're right to say that we're calling this report a fallacious report. We're using very strong terms because, again, in the words of the English, for us, the more things change, the more they remain the same. And in 2013, we monitored the party primaries. At that time, we came up with a report called Breaking with the Past. But then we did not manage to break with that past. And this year's nomination really have been a fallacy of sorts, because you cannot purport to have actually gone ahead and conducted party primaries and party nominations in complete disregard of the law. So if the law was not followed, especially Section 6 of the Political Parties Act, that requires each and every political party to have a membership list, then we wonder on what basis these political parties went out there to conduct these so-called party nominations.
Was it that ugly for all the parties, or there are those particular parties that probably got it right?
The indictment is out, especially when it comes to the issue of party membership list, there is not a single party that actually got it right. And as you will see from our report, not Jubilee, not ODM, not Wiper, none of the 9 or so parties that were able to monitor in the over 200 centers that we were, none of the political parties actually got it right. So we're actually very concerned. Again, over and above the parties not having a credible and legitimate membership list, there are cases that continue to dog us in terms of election, because we also found out there are massive cases of bribery, there are massive cases of violence, and this again speaks to the indictment of the whole party nomination process, because the way we are supposed to conduct our elections is such that Kenyans should be allowed an opportunity to truly choose the men and women that they want to represent them.
Does it therefore mean that those who are nominated in this process, because some of them, depending on how strong their parties are in their regions, are probably in the positions that they were nominated to, does it mean that they were elected in or they will be elected in a process that was flawed, and and probably they will be in the office illegally?
Well, we would actually say, as a country, what we are aiming for is to see our democracy mature by bounds, but that is not the case so far. And indeed, one of the clearest manifestations of the dissatisfaction the various contestants had in this exercise is the ballooning number of the so-called independent candidates. That is a major indictment of the political parties. It speaks to the lack of the internal democracy. A number of Kenyans were actually not even allowed to participate in voting. Some of the people who have been given certificates because some of the polling stations opened late, others opened early, and therefore this phenomenon we're seeing, whereby we have these massive numbers of independent candidates, really speaks to the general dissatisfaction of the whole process, especially by those ones who participated in this process.
And finally, moving on forward, how would you, what has your commission recommended in future primaries?
We've made a number of recommendations to key critical actors, including the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. There are those ones who are clearly in breach of the laws, and yesterday I heard that the DCI has launched a team of special police officers, 800 of them. We will be forwarding the names of those ones who breached the elections laws, and we hope that action will be taken against them. But also, most importantly, we are calling on the Chapter 6 working group that was established under the leadership of the Attorney General to actually take very decisive measures to ensure that the men and women who do not meet the leadership and integrity chapter requirements are not allowed to vie, and that number 2, those ones who actually complicit one way or another in breaching the electoral laws, that firm action is taken against them.
Asante sana, Mr. Vice Chair, for speaking to Citizen Extra. It's the Vice Chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights trying to unpack the report they are calling the fallacious vote, and we will keep unpacking this whole report for you when it is unveiled. That is what we have as of now, Fred Ndimuli, but we will be keeping tabs of this story as it unravels.
Oh, thank you, Waweru Nyambura, there live from the Intercontinental, where the KNCHR is launching a report with regard to the to last month's chaotic party primaries. That report is titled Fallacious Vote. And that's exactly what we are talking about here. There seems to be general agreement that the party primaries were chaotic, they were not credible at all. It's the same thing we were talking about here. Of course, we'll be going back to Waweru Nyambura once that report is launched, probably to get the details, including the recommendations coming from there. Bwana Kimuso, everyone seems to be in agreement, but are we seeing, is there something that we are missing? Because yes, everyone says yes, the party primaries were flawed, that's why we have so many independent candidates. Could there be something that we're just missing? We probably are just looking at it in a simplistic way.
Fred, let's admit the culture and the discipline of political parties is something that is foreign for us. Just look at the only political party that you can actually talk about its longevity is maybe KANU, followed by Democratic Party, ODM. These other ones, President Mwai Kibaki went into government in 2002 under NAC. By the year 2007, we had the Party of National Unity. By the same thing, Uhuru Kenyatta went into, became president, TNA. Now he's going to be under Jubilee. And I can actually bet, I don't promote betting, but I can do it on this, that come 2022, Jubilee will be a different thing. So the first thing, Fred, is that we haven't moved and evolved to be a people who believe in building political parties as platforms to articulate, aggregate the interests of our people. Our first rallying point that has remained for long is the ethnic group. So I think the biggest political party in our country is the ethnic group. Only that then those interests of the communities gain legitimacy in a political party. Ask yourself tomorrow morning, if, for example, Kalonzo Musyoka moves from Wiper and he joins maybe another party X, it is likely possible that he will move with his political base. But actually the culture of political parties is that the interest that Wiper was articulating, I'm using Wiper for example in this case, should still keep people in that party. So the thing that we are not missing is that we are walking a journey that is fallacious as a people, that the culture and philosophy of political party is something that is foreign for us. Yes. So if we want to go back to people normally go ahead because the institutions that they build reflect their philosophy and who they are as a people. I can tell you, every community in our country has interest. Let no one lie to you. Yes. If you talk to the Kikuyus, they have interest. If you talk to the Kalenjins, they have interest. So the question we should actually be asking ourselves is, what are the best vehicles to facilitate the interest of all those communities, and so that we can actually grow and nurture the culture of political parties. If we don't do that, yes, we are actually lying to ourselves. Allow me to play the devil's advocate here and introduce this theory. Sandra said that yes, it's a bit, what did you say? Which word did you use?
Escapist.
Very escapist. But in as far as the succession debate is concerned, because very many people are avoiding this particular debate about succession, but it is something that is very true when it comes to this particular campaign period. Because yes, in as far as NASA is concerned, Raila Odinga has said, and they've signed an MOU, we do understand that he will only run for one term. On the other side, Jubilee, we know that Uhuru Kenyatta, even if he wins, this is the last time he's running for president. That means the 2022 succession debate is very much alive now. How much of that played out of the party primaries? Is this what we are seeing now? That probably even within the Mount Kenya region, some of the big names that fell off during the party primaries are now coming back. Could that be informed by the 2022 debate? Kimosop, let's start with you before we come to the Senate. You know, Fred, I can tell you for a fact, and I wish Kimbi would declare a lot more than what we say in the bars and in other restaurants. The reality of it is that there are people who have invested in the 22 elections. And if you look at even William Kabogo, and I can tell you the script and the narrative that he will play, is that after Uhuru Kenyatta is off the scene, we need a man who is strong enough to take on William Ruto in the event he becomes president. And I can tell you, William Kabogo is the leader of that group so far. Why? Because he has the resources, he's shown the gravitas that he is the man who can defend the interests of the community per se. So succession, Fred, is actually at the heart of this. And just to correct something you said, if you listen to Raila Odinga's interview with Hussein, I think the one that was done in his residence, he said very well that we have agreed that I'm going to be a transitional president. But he did not leave, he left the room open that in the event they are not successful in this election, that MOU will be frustrated by circumstances. So I just thought it was good to bring this into this debate. Okay, Senator Kembi Gittura, because we've heard from some quarters people blaming some forces, even within Jubilee, of trying to frustrate some of the probably possible successors, possible and I'm saying possible in terms of perception, that anyone who was perceived to be possibly a successor to President Uhuru Kenyatta in as far as Mount Kenya politics is concerned fell off the wagon at the party primaries. Do you subscribe to that kind of theory?
I would rather put it differently. Like I said, you see, democracy is a work in progress. It's never a finished product. and there is still hope for political parties. But this is work in progress. But it doesn't appear like a lot of people are working towards that that goal. Because if you think about it, if you look at the party primaries, at least for Jubilee, some people thought, and I think quite wrongly, that all the doors were shut, and that if they won by hook or crook, if they stole the vote, if they stuffed the boxes, that would be it. It would be a fait accompli. They would be declared the Jubilee Party candidates in the August elections. Unfortunately for them, that was not going to be. And that is why you find them so worried now. That's why, although they are chest thumping, I saw them chest thumping over the weekend and saying that they're the only candidates that are going to run in this region or under Jubilee ticket. They're lying to themselves, because the people finally are going to decide who their leaders are going to be. And the people saw that the nominations are shambolic, that in most cases they were stolen, that people are not given a chance to do what they were supposed to do. There was lots and lots of voter bribery. All of us saw it, and it was like an epidemic, if you ask me. But you see, the people finally are going to make a decision on 8th of August whether they are going to elect that independent candidate or the Jubilee Party candidate, or whichever party candidate they are going to elect. This is what needs to be seen. And in my view, this is how you develop democracy, because the Wanjiku who was bribed, the Wanjiku who was cheated, the Wanjiku who saw these things happen and was helpless, is finally going to make a decision. The only thing that we ask is that the IEBC elections on 8th of August are free, fair and transparent, because if they are not, then this is what foments situations that are not good in any nation. Yes. We expect that the IEBC elections will be free, fair and transparent, and that this time Wanjiku will not be bribed, and that there will be no manipulation, and that the elections will be free for all to see, because this is the thing that we want to see. We want to see democracy developing, but you cannot develop democracy by stealing. Yes. By showing the kids that you are bringing up that it's okay to steal an election, a vote, and be elected. Because what's going to happen is that if what we saw on 26th of April, if it's allowed to go on, then we are telling our children, that it's okay to steal. It's okay to do this, and you be leaders. But they'll be leaders to who they lead. Okay, Senator. Of course, your case was a bit different. You disputed the result of that the party primaries in Murang'a immediately and declared you'd go as an independent. But the people like Governor William Kabogo and MP for Mukurweini Kabando wa Kabando, who initially conceded defeat, but later, about a week or so later, they've gone back and said now, after looking back, they're saying now they're going in as independents. What do you think informed this late decision, or rather change of heart? I think every man has a right to change his mind in the light of new circumstances. Maybe they thought in good faith that the elections were free and fair. But once they sat and evaluated the results, Mukurweini, and other places, maybe Kabando discovered, like I did immediately, that the vote was essentially stolen, and that therefore the concession that he had made was not well founded, and so he had a right to change his mind on that issue. Yes. That's the view that I take, and I think it's everybody's right to be able to change their mind and say, yeah, it's not going to be like this. We will not allow thieves and vagabonds to get away with it. Yes.
Don't you think, and this is, I'm trying to look at this party primaries vis-a-vis the succession debate, that the kind of individuals that we saw losing out at the party primaries, especially in Jubilee strongholds, were very serious foot soldiers of President Uhuru Kenyatta. That after that, he's lost Maina Kamanda, he's lost Jamle Kamau, Kembi Getura, didn't make it back, at least didn't get the party ticket. Kabando wa Kabando did not get the party ticket. That perhaps the president was left a bit exposed, and then therefore after a while they realized, no, we need to go back and try and protect the president, as it were. Do you think that particular theory holds water?
I suspect there was a conspiracy, if you ask me. Yes. What happened was not normal. Yes. In my own case, for instance, it was totally and absolutely abnormal, that I could lose the nomination in Murang'a, because the facts were there for everybody to see. We counted the votes. I was leading the whole day. I was leading in almost all the wards in the county. Suddenly, 4 wards came at the last minute, and there was a surge in the votes that came in. It was totally and absolutely ridiculous, if you ask me. And fortunately, everybody in Murang'a knows this. And that is why you see that there is yet no celebration by anybody, not the governor,
do you think
not the governor, not
yes.
the Senate, not the so-called senator-elect. None of them is celebrating.
Do you think that your loss was stage managed by particular powerful forces, maybe within Jubilee Party?
Let me put it this way. Whoever did it in such a way, but in such so foolishly, that people, a lot of times people don't take time to think. They think Wanjiku is a very foolish person. Wanjiku isn't foolish at all. Wanjiku knows exactly what is happening. Wanjiku can watch and see. And Wanjiku is now asking, these fellows who say they won, why are they not celebrating? Why are they not going out there and saying they won? Why are they now trying to threaten others and saying they are the only people who can talk for Jubilee? We support President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Yes.
Yeah, because it is not right to say that it is Jubilee that stole the election. It was individuals within Jubilee. In Muranga, it was those individuals who stole the election, and not to make it appear like it was legitimate. It wasn't. But fortunately, or rather unfortunately for them, people know this, and they are waiting for them on the 8th of August. Kenneth Matiba used to tell us, Honorable Kenneth Matiba used to tell us, let the people decide.
Yes.
And this time round, the people will decide, and I hope for the sake of our county and all the other counties where votes were stolen, I hope that the IEBC is watching and is going to give us credible, free and fair elections on 8th of August.
Sandra, of course you did not immediately buy into this theory, but the senator even appears to suggest that yes, some of these things appeared not very normal. Some of the losses, especially within the Mount Kenya region, were not very normal. That probably they could have been stage managed by some forces, and we've had those theories that yes, some powerful forces within the party had their own lineups of who should come out of the other end of the party primaries. Do you think that it holds water, Sandra?
Sorry?
Do you think that this debate actually has something to do with the 2022 succession? That probably some of the people who lost out were intentionally thrown out of the party so that they do not present a proper challenge come 2022?
And I'll agree with the theory partly,
yes.
Based on the fact that politics is about strategy, and at any given point you want to surround yourself with individuals who will be able to propel you to the destination you'd want to get to. And I'm not sure why we're only speaking of succession from a Jubilee perspective and not from a NASA perspective, because even for the NASA team, they're also strategizing in one way or another for the 2022 election. And you saw this even with the Wiper and ODM nominations that took place within their respective places. So to some extent, yes, one could say that all these activities and all that we've been seeing could have been stage managed, so that the leaders at one point, they want to surround themselves with individuals who are able to sing their songs, so to speak, and who are able to see through the same lens as they do. But there's one other thing I'd like to point out to Fred in terms of what Kimosop also talked about in terms of our political culture. What we are lacking, for me, I see it from three perspectives. We're lacking vision, we're lacking ideology, and we're lacking leadership. For any member of a political party, as you're getting in, as you're registering, even before you say that you want to vie for a position, what is it that is driving you to join that party? What vision do you have as an individual and for the country? And in terms of ideology, what kind of ideology is that party standing for, and what does it seek to propagate? And in terms of leadership, what kind of leadership do we have? And we've seen instances where with all the political parties that we had, you had instances where people were saying, oh, the leadership is pressing for this, the leadership is pressing for that. So that, in my perspective, takes away these questions of democracy, takes away these discussions that we're having all the time about free and fair election. And from my perspective, and that is why I have an issue with this emergence of thousands and thousands of independent candidates. If you have a problem within your house, or within your family, you do not leave that family and belong to another family immediately. You try and resolve the issues that you have.
You get married.
I think that's where we now go wrong.
Yes.
I think that's where we go wrong, because what Sandra is saying is that you should allow yourself, you should allow people to come to your house and steal, and then after they've stolen, you sit and negotiate with them. That's ridiculous. I think we must realize this, that this issue that she's calling ideology. First of all, I liked very much what the Kenya National Human Rights Commission said. Unfortunately, as I was watching, what they are doing is a post-mortem. You know, they are dealing after the man has died.
Yes.
And so they can only be talking about 2022 or some subsequent nominations. But now we are here, and we are talking about stolen votes.
Yes.
And what Sandra is saying is that we should sit and accept it, and then go to the party headquarters at Pangani and start discussing how and why were they stolen, what can we do in 2022, why should we agree? We've invested a lot in the party, we've invested a lot in our political careers, and it's not that we have changed ideologies, no.
Okay.
It's just that we have a representation of our people, and we think we know what we want to achieve in our political careers, and we are not going to allow anybody, you know, to cut it short just because they have their own views about what they want now or in 2022. These are the things that we must all of us recognize.
What end and for how long?
We need to find out. He has said very clearly that it is not the party that did this. It is individuals who, if I listen to the Honorable Senator very well, Honorable Senator, you are a politician and an advocate, I think, if listening from your past presentation. Assuming, for example, if people did it to your advantage, and that the candidate who was declared was Kembe Kithure, would you be speaking the way you're speaking today? I think also
I would be saying the same thing, because I would not have been party to those malpractices and the stealing of votes. You see, I'm talking from a point of view of a credible, free and fair nomination. I'm not talking from a point of view of people competing to steal. That would be different.
Okay. Gentlemen, I want to bring in Bwana Karungu Wathang'wa, who is another candidate who lost out in the Jubilee Party primaries and now is running as an independent candidate. Karungu Wathang'wa, good morning, karibu sana. Will you say the same as Bwana Kembe Kithure, that lost is a wrong word to be used on you when it comes to the Jubilee Party primaries?
Yes, I would say that, because we did not lose, and especially myself, I didn't. And I want to give a case scenario that happened sometime way back in Liberia in 1927. There was an election, and the election was against Charles King and another presidential candidate called Thomas J. And the returning officer announced that Charles King got 243,000 votes, and who came second was Thomas J. with how many votes? 9,000. Just because the returning officer said that, that was that. But do you know what? There were only 15,000 registered voters. Now, would you tell Thomas J. to go back to the party and start campaigning for somebody who people believe and understand that he was not elected by the people? So my question is, and I want to ask everybody who voted, if you truly believe that you won, what are you afraid of? The same people will come for you and will vote for you. The same people. The only thing that is changing, and I've always said, is the referee, who is the IBC. But the same people will be there. So telling somebody to wait, what are you waiting for? Do you want us to postpone our problem? Do you want us to postpone our hunger problem? Do you want us to postpone the road problem for 5 years, but just because somebody stole an election? Or somebody conspired? Because I want to say this, because those now who won, they're very happy. They're saying it was free and fair, just because they won. And they're saying now the independent candidates are now fighting the president. I want to tell the people of Kiambu today and the people of this country, the independent people are actually helping, because we were here campaigning for the president. And I also want to tell them the name Uhuru also represents independence. It does.
Okay, Bwana Karungu Wathang'wa, we're trying to move on from now the disgruntlement from the party primaries. We do understand our shambolic. In fact, in every sentence we describe them as chaotic, shambolic party primaries. But now, looking at the independent wave and going forward, because now I'm looking at 2022 and the succession debate, how much of this fallout from the party primaries will affect the 2022 party primary succession debate? Looking at it this way, quite a number of people who could have been or within Jubilee Party who could have probably offered themselves for probably the position of deputy president, because now we are, as far as Jubilee is concerned, William Ruto will be the presidential candidate come 2022. Some of those who could have offered themselves for the position of deputy president lost out at the primaries level. How does that affect now the 2022 succession debate? That is where we are right now, Bwana Karungu.
I don't know why we're speaking about 2022. I don't know why. Because you see, the problem is today, the problem is now. And you don't know what will happen. Ask my governor, Kabogo. He was saying he could be the deputy president come 22. Where is he now? The people rejected him. So what I would want us to really discuss is today and moving forward. Because when you start discussing about 2022, for me and myself, I'm a firstborn of devolution. And being a firstborn of devolution, I have to make sure devolution works. That's why I'm moving step by step from MCA to the senator, probably governor. And you see, when it comes to 2022, we're still in Kiambu, and I don't want really to discuss about...
and that's the one thing that I'm finding a bit tricky and funny, because anyone within Jubilee is very anxious not to discuss 2022. Why is that?
You see, my election was stolen the other day. Man, you're taking me way too far to start talking about 2022. Okay. Yet I've not accomplished.
Look at it this way. Look at it this way.
Not accomplished what they want.
Look at
the democratic right was taken away.
Okay.
Let's first of all discuss this one.
Now we are facing this new wave of independent candidates. It will change the face of parliament. It will change the face of how the Senate will work, because we do not know how many independent senators will be there. You could be one of them. Bona Kembe Getura could be another. This means you've already resigned from the Jubilee Party. Yes, you're no longer members of the Jubilee Party. Yes.
Do you know what will happen? If you look at the current parliament and the current Senate, there are those MPs, there are those governors who moved to Jubilee Party. They defected to Jubilee Party and they still retain their seat. Okay. Because the law allowed them to do that.
Yes.
Now I want to tell, and I'm telling the Kiambu people, the moment I get elected and get into Senate, the next thing I'm going to do is to move back home to Jubilee. Because I was taken away from Jubilee by those people, those individuals. If I can finish, what I'll do, I know I'm going to join other independent candidates who will be elected, because there are going to be so many. And then we will come with an amendment of the Political Parties Act, whereby we will allow those who've been elected by both those who've been elected as independents or ODM or whichever other party to come back home. Because I'm saying I did not get out of Jubilee because I like it. I did not get out of Jubilee because it's my way.
We have to speak. Because some of us we're here as analysts. Kembi and my brother here, Wagrang, are politicians. Are politicians. Actually, I remember very well. I remember very well that the first thing that my interaction with him was during a training for MCAs and they've done a good job. I think if you read the law and the constitution, it says very well that somebody loses their seat as an independent when they join a political party. Because the philosophy of being an independent party is that you're not associated with any political party. This does not mean in terms of relationship and work. So, my brother, it's possible for you as an independent candidate to work closely with Jubilee or ODM in terms of work, legislation, but it is not legal for you to run as an independent when you get to the floor of parliament, move to another party, unless you actually are telling the people of Kiambu before the election that prepare for another election. Because you're comparing that.
Let me make this point.
Article 194 of the Constitution. Yes. And for sure, it says that. But you see, your advocate is here, we make the law, they implement. What I'm trying to say, let me finish my story. Let me finish my statement. Because you see, when you talk about you cannot move, the same Article 194 of the Constitution says that the Parliament can make a law. If you look at E down there, it says you can make a law, which is now Political Parties Act, which is of course the Elections Act, and all those things. So what I'm trying to tell the people of this country is that it is doable. It can be done.
No. So all you need to do bring in Sandra for now.
And that's exactly why I made the initial point about escapism. Because if you truly understand the provision of the constitution as regards independent candidature, and if you truly understand the reasons why we have independent candidates within the constitution and as a country, then it will not be open, you will not be open to abusing it. Because you cannot say that now you want to be an independent candidate simply because you want to vie for a particular seat, and once you are in parliament you change this.
Yes.
That is abuse of the constitution and abuse of its provisions.
And also, Senator Kembi Getura, are you as well looking forward to rejoining Jubilee once
I don't agree with Karungo Thwanga with the rods of respect. I mean, I think one must, you can't have your cake and eat it. I think we cannot keep changing the law to suit situations. If you go in as an independent, and by the way, you must realize that there are independents already in the National Assembly.
Yes,
they are independent in the National Assembly, and what they do is they decide which side or what to do, depending on each specific situation. So I don't think we should keep changing the law at the whim of, you know, when you're elected because you want to say this or the other. Nothing is going to stop you from voting with Jubilee if you wish, or with whoever else you want to vote with. It's your decision. That's why you're independent. And independent assumes that you have an independent mind and that you'll be able to do what you think is right. The way you chose to be independent because you thought that what you stood for, other people did not recognize it. They chose to steal from you. They took away your votes from you. They lied to Wanjiku. They bribed Wanjiku, and you say, this is not what I believed in. This is not what I stood for. I stand for what is right. I stand for a corrupt, free, nation or party or what it is that you want to say. And this is why I'm saying now, I want to take a position alone and go with it and associate with those people who think like me. Okay, I think that's what independence is all about.
Let's now take a break. We'll come back to finish this discussion, and of course, Bwana Karungo Thwanga will give you another opportunity to defend your position. But even, as you go to the break, let's also listen in to what is happening at the Intercontinental Hotel, where KNCHR is currently launching a report on last month's chaotic party primaries.
Thank the Dutch Embassy in Nairobi, and we also want to most sincerely welcome the representative from the Japanese Embassy to this press briefing. I also want to thank my colleagues at the Commission, led by the indefatigable Lucas Kimanzi and Anne-Marie, and all the team at the Hub. We set up an election monitoring center, and I see most of the members are here. I know some of you worked late into the night, so it's a pleasure to actually have you here this morning. But just a brief highlight to add on what Lucas has said. We've termed our report the fallacious vote. And maybe from that brief presentation, it starts becoming clear why, as a country, although we have a constitution that we call one of the most progressive, although we've enacted a number of laws to govern our electoral system, although we had a serious challenge of elections in 2007-2008, and although as a commission we monitored the elections, the party nominations in 2013, and made recommendations, we are still not really, we haven't made progress in a way that will make us confident that we are moving in the right direction, and hence the fallacious vote. So it would appear like the more things change, the more they remain the same. And again, it's a fallacious vote. I was looking up the word fallacy. Definition is a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound argument. So if we went ahead and said we've had party primaries without legitimate party registers, then I don't know what we are relying on, because that is clearly in contravention with section 6 of the Political Parties Act. You cannot go to an election without your members. Yet all parties without exception carried out these elections without having valid membership lists, as Lucas has said. And other synonyms to go with fallacy are misconception, misbelief, delusion, inconsistency, and all those other synonymous words. But ladies and gentlemen, allow me to make a few remarks, and then I'll invite our chairperson to read the remaining part of our press statement, and then we'll be able to interact with you. In Kenya, Just like in any representative democracy, elections are meant to reflect the aspirations of citizens as the key decision makers in electing the leadership of the country through the power vested upon them by the Constitution of Kenya. Article 1